Hi, let's talk about inversions and the way you notate those inversions when you use Roman numerals for harmonic analysis. Let's take a triad of C. Here's the C triad. Okay, no problem. That is a triad in root position. What does that mean? That the C, the root of the triad, is at the bottom. Now if I play a triad simply like this, it's on the bottom. If I put a real bass note underneath it, it's still a root position. Even if I change the position of my right hand, it's fine. Because the C is in the bass, it is still C major in root position. Now if we go to the first inversion, let's take this C triad again. And now we move the root an octave higher. Now what is the lowest note? It's the E. If I put that E in the bass, we have a C triad in first inversion. Whatever I do in the right hand doesn't matter, because the bass, the lowest note, decides which inversion it is. Okay, we call that chord a sixth chord. So if this would have been the first degree in the tonality of C major, that would have been first degree 6. We could do it in the second inversion. So now we put the fifth note in the bass. Let me put it in the bass. Doesn't matter what I play in the right hand, that G is in the bass. Second inversion, 6/4 chord. It's called a 6/4 chord. If C was the first degree in the tonality of C major, it would have been 1/6/4. How do we get 6/4? Where do those numbers come from? Well, it's quite simple. If you take the basic triad in its second inversion, then you will see that above the bass note you will have a sixth, and you will have above this bass note a fourth. 6/4. And that's why that chord is called 6/4. Same with the sixth chord. If I have C triad in first inversion, above the bass note you will have a sixth interval, and that's why that chord is called 1/6. And that's it. So you have root position, then you say nothing. You have first inversion, then you say 6. When it's second inversion, you say 6/4. Now we go to an interesting one, the seventh chords. Let's just stay in the tonality of C, because it just makes the thinking a little bit more transparent. So here is the first degree, C, E, G, and as the seventh chord with a B. That's C major 7 in root position. You don't have to say anything. You could say 1 with a 7. But in jazz it's so common that we use seventh chords that we don't add that seventh all the time. So we just say that's the 1 chord, and that means in the jazz world this is a 1 chord as a seventh chord. In classical music it's not always the case, and then you would put 1 with a 7. We take this in first inversion. Okay. Let me make it very clear, just to tell you again, this right hand voicing is not that important. If I decide to do this, that's also fine, because I still have the third of the chord in the bass. This is called a 6/5 chord. Now you say 6/5, why do they make life so difficult? Okay, let's take this basic 7 chord in the first inversion. Now what is above the lowest note, the bass note? It's a 6th and it's a 5th. The complete way to describe this chord, in fact, would be the 6-5-3 chord, but people don't do that. When they say 6-5, they know this is first degree as a 6-5 in first inversion. We take the second inversion. Now we have the G in the bass, and that is called a 4-3 chord. Now you say that's not logical, because yes, I can see the fourth above my bass note, and I can see the 3 above my bass note, but there's also a 6 above my bass note, and you're absolutely right. So the complete name of this chord is 6-4-3. First degree, 6-4-3. People don't use that. They say 1-4-3. Now we go to the extreme. We put the 7th, which is the third inversion of the C major 7 chord. Now the B is in the bass. What is that called? Okay, I'm going to make you think with me. We start at the top, so it's the 6-4-2 chord. And that would be the full name, but people know enough when you say that's a 2 chord. So when you say the first degree in the tonality of C in third inversion is called 1-2 and sounds like this. Now you say that's so weird. Why would anybody ever use that? Well, for instance here. And that's all the inversions. Nothing, root position. The root is in the bass. 6 means the third is in the bass of a triad. 6-5, the third is in the bass for a 7th chord. 6-4, the 5th is in the bass for a triad. 4-3, the 5th is in the bass for a 7th chord. And then there's the little special one, the 2 chord, which is the third inversion of a 7 chord. Think about it. See you next time.